Blah, 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 dentist, treasurer, all that good stuff. Joe's going to continue on with Mercury. And hey, Joe, can you finish like 15, 20 minutes early?
I'll finish earlier than that, probably.
Okay. So we'll do Q&A as soon as he finishes, but we'll be done definitely by noon for lunch.
Where is it?
All right, Joe Palmer.
A little about me, I want to tell you. And so I started dental practice in 1984 and quit doing amalgams in 1997. So the first 13 years of my practice, I was just like every other dentist out there. Put in mercury, took mercury out, no protection at all. So that was my Superman period. And my Superman period actually lasted a little bit longer than that, because it took me a while to find the IAOMT and start learning how to protect myself. So what mercury caused in me and my family during that time, I finished dental school 6 months early. My wife was a school teacher. She broke her contract. We moved and started a practice, built a building, finished it before I even passed my state boards. I was young, crazy, and stupid back then. Now I'm just old, crazy, and sometimes stupid. So my wife came to work for me. We started our practice. She did chairside, and I promise you, we didn't have a lot of patients. First year in dentistry, my profit was $20,000 for a year of dentistry in '84. So what we got out of that was she had a miscarriage. Didn't have any clue it could have been related to mercury. Looking back on it now, I'm sure it was. A couple of years later, she quit working for me in the office, stayed at home. We did have some more kids, so she was a living home mom. She started having symptoms which they labeled as fibromyalgia, an autoimmune disorder, whatever it is. I was pretty stupid, but I knew that was just a label. And luckily, I was working with a physician for TMJ pain. He was doing some ligament injections. Had no idea he even did this. And I said, you need to go to Dr. Schwartz and just let him look at you, because he treats fibromyalgia. And he diagnosed her with heavy metal poisoning. Cleaned her up. All those symptoms went away. She's been fine. So here's me, stupid ass. I'm still doing nothing to protect myself. Have no clue that I may have mercury poisoning until she comes up to me and says, you got to go get checked. You're changing. My personality was changing. I had a really short temper. Every joint in my body ached. I was the first one in the state of South Carolina, because at the end of the day, giving injections with my thumb, I couldn't move my thumb. I thought I was going to have to quit dentistry. So I go to Dr. Schwartz. He looked at me and said, Joe, I've never seen anybody with as high levels of mercury as you have. So that was my road to change. So mercury had done its damage and did its damage to me. I had a heart attack when I was 48. I had another stent placed when I was 58. I'm 63 now. I met my cardiologist just last week. He said, your heart's great, you're doing great, but I bet we have to do another stent sooner or later. Let me know if you have any symptoms coming on. So that's what mercury can do to you. So why I do this? Because I see all these young faces out there. I see all these females out there who can have children. I want you to be protected. I want you to practice dentistry, but I want you to be protected. I don't want you to have to go through the stuff I've been through. So I've become a biological dentist. And I don't know really where that term came from, but I think it came from our patients. I didn't make it up. Through the years of change, I heard Mercury-Free. Well, Mercury-Free dentists, well, they don't place mercury, but that doesn't mean they're Mercury-Safe. Do they protect their patients, or are you protecting you and your staff? So this biological thing came up, just started showing up, and I really think it did come from our patients. You know, you see it on the internet. So what I think of as a biological dentist is one that does everything he can not to use any metals in the mouth. You take precautions, you protect yourself, you protect your team, you protect your patient when you remove any metals from the mouth. And that includes titanium implants. I'm not going to get going on titanium implants, but I've been doing zirconia implants for over 10 years, and they are beautiful implants. They work great. So I would urge you to try to find somebody, if you're not doing implants, that's doing zirconia implants that you can refer to. So really, there are no dentists that are mercury-free because you always are dealing with mercury in dental practice. Whether you don't put it in, you have to take it out. And you got to protect yourself from the vapor. There you go. How'd you do that?
I researched all the literature on the occupational exposure of dentists to amalgam and ended up writing a paper as a result of that research that was published on exposure predominantly to particulate matter. As dentists drill out a filling, their dental drill runs at about 400,000 RPM, and it sends a shower of micron size and submicron size particles everywhere. It's tens of thousands of parts per million. There was literature actually that measured the amount of particulate matter in the airspace or the breathing zone of a dentist during removals, and a researcher had studied this using mannequins into which they had put in fake teeth with fillings in them and then drilled them out and taken all the measurements while they were doing it. And the dose of particulate matter experienced by dentists, if they don't take precautions, is huge. It's way larger than the vapor exposure they get during the same process. Particulate exposure for a single filling delivers micrograms of mercury, which in mercury terms is a lot. And this happens, at the time, the average was around 4 to 5 fillings were removed by a typical dentist in any given day so that he could replace them or whatever. And even if they wear the typical surgical mask, they're designed to stop particles of around 3 microns in size or larger, because that's the size of typical bacteria. Well, the particles of amalgam pass right through that mask because they're well less than 3 microns. They average around 1.5 microns in size and go down to the submicron level. The amalgam load would probably give them 100 times more exposure to mercury than just inhaling the vapor that is present at the same time. The particle load carries, 50% of the mass of any particular particle is mercury. And that's delivered straight to the lungs, and it's absorbed within 3 days, and the mass is quite large. And it stays there, as opposed to the mercury vapor drops off fairly quickly. The amalgam particles that have been inhaled, they don't dissipate anywhere but directly into the body. So the dose delivered is very, very significant.
Okay, so a little bit more of my story. I went through chelation one time, and my levels were like 85 micrograms when they measured it and challenge test on urine, and got my levels down by about half. So then after I had the first heart attack, or before that actually, I found this new doctor, and I went to him, and they checked my levels again, and they were back up. And I'm going, wait a minute, I've been using some basic protocols. Most of the time I'd wear a mask. At least I had a high volume suction for myself, and that was about it. So it kind of made me think, well, why my levels go back up? And we're not sure why. Maybe they never came down all the way. Just when we tested, we didn't get it all, and I had really more in there than we thought. So in a discussion with Dr. Young and David Warwick and those guys up there, Bill Virtue, we decided, let's run another study. Let's try to figure out where particulate goes in the operatory when we're doing this. So we did this first study. We thought we did this thing just set up perfect. We had industrial hygienists come in. We started out with all our controls, which I'll be going over in place. We take one control off. We do another session. We measure everything, exact same spots, wiping surfaces, and then having that tested. We also measured vapor. We also measured vapor and particulate at our breathing zones. We had monitors right here. We were fully protected. Maddie came and says, we got to wear these biological suits while we're doing this. I looked at Maddie and said, I'm not wearing that thing. all day long? You mean, seriously? Wait, you saw in that previous video, these guys dressed up in biohazard suits and that plume of aerosol coming out as we did this? That was Maddie and myself in my old office. So we figured out, doing all that even with all our controls on, there was still potential for exposure. And that's why it's so important, the things I'm going to be telling you today, so that you will be protected and be willing to wear some of this stuff that we're going to ask you to wear. So if all our controls on, particulate and vapor, which we measured at our breathing zone, we were putting out 3.3 micrograms. And we saw an average of the total vapor of 160.5 micrograms. And remember, when you see studies, they talk about peak levels or average levels, but we were taking this stuff out. It would take like about 20 minutes a session. You're breathing everything that whole 20 minutes, the whole volume of that for every 20 minutes. And I didn't bring my glasses, but that thing's little up there. Now, I don't know these numbers anyway. But look over there on the particulate samples. Look where those numbers are. And that's getting on the assistant's knee, on the patient's chest, and different places that we measured. 2.2 micrograms, and look at that 340 micrograms on the patient's chest. So then we had all sessions, but I'm not putting them all up here. We had water and dental suction only, which is the way most dentists practice. You know, they don't have the high volume suctions and other things I'm going to show you. And you can see those levels all go up to 300 and what's that, 60 for the assistant. Next time we got to use my computer. I can't read those. Y'all can see them though, right? Pretty high, okay? Change. So the results of that study were, with all controls in place, the dentist assistant and patient are still exposed to mercury vapor and particulate. So you just cannot fail to protect yourself. You can protect the patient. The patient's getting protected pretty well. But if you don't wear a respirator mask, you don't wear a disposable garment like I'm going to be talking to you about, all that particulate's going on your clothes, you're breathing it into your lungs, you're contaminating yourself and your team. So, the ADA tells us, you know, just the basic things. I mean, it came out in the 1970s when they were getting away from cheesecloth and amalgam. They were putting amalgam into capsules, and they were telling us these precautions. You know, use the pre-capsules. If you spill any, you got to clean it up. Well-ventilated offices. You probably shouldn't have carpet. Open the windows if you can, and clear everything out. But that's as far as they went. Wear a mask, but they were talking about cloth masks, which do nothing, as you heard Dr. Richardson say. So, those are recommendations that do not work to protect you from mercury. Because if they did, I wouldn't have had mercury poisoning from being a dentist, and I wouldn't have 2 heart attacks probably. So, 29th year of practice. I've now been practicing 36 years. I had to go through chelation again because I wasn't doing all the protection to myself that I should have been doing. I was doing what we thought was enough, but for me, it wasn't enough. So what does IAOMT did after that study, which we didn't get this study published? We tried, and they told us we didn't have enough samples, which was crazy because we had a book this thick of data that the industrial hygienist prepared for us. But we redid the study, or Dave and Maddie, and recollected the study. We've recently done a study where we just collected the particulate off the head of the handpiece and ran it to see what it was. We measured how much particulate, some of the vapor, calculated vapor coming off of that. We just got that study approved for publication 2 days ago. So that's going to be coming out and be published. Then maybe we can go back and work in and get this other study kind of published also. So congratulations, David. Thank you, buddy. All right. So the IAOMT has come up with more stringent protection than we had 3 years ago. And we've labeled it SMART, Safe Mercury Amalgam Removal Technique. We have a website for it. We have YouTube videos for it. 450 of our members are now SMART certified, which out of 1,000, that's pretty good. We have an accreditation process in the Academy. Accreditation takes a little bit more, but we wanted to get you, new members, involved quickly and be able to have a certification that shows you're willing to protect yourself and your team. Now, as I go through this, there are no substitutions. There are nothing you should be leaving out. If you think you're bulletproof like I thought I was, and you want to leave some of this out and call yourself SMART certified, don't even bother. Because when we find out about it, we're going to call you and say, hey, what are you doing? Why aren't you using a rubber dam? Why are you using an isolite instead of a rubber dam? Why aren't you covering yourself up when you're not wearing anything? Patients call. They know. Sometimes I'll have my respirator mask on, but I hadn't pulled my hood up that I use. And patients will start going, they're all covered up, and they'll start waving their hand, going, what's wrong? What's the matter? You all right? Pull your head up. You've got to pull your head up. I mean, I've had that happen, I don't tell you how many times. Not many, not many, but it does happen. They know. So who needs the protection? Everybody in the room. Your patient, your team, the dentist. If some staff member is going to walk in there and take photos for you, they need a respirator mask on and they need to be covered up. And I don't have that because it's not my computer. But basically it was dispersible oil, the instructions for it are on there saying you should do every bit of this when you're dealing with their mercury fillings. So the procedures for the patients, we want to do a pre-rinse with them. You can use charcoal, a slurry of charcoal made with chlorella, or what I use is N-acetylcysteine and some vitamin C. And they can swallow that rinse. It'll get in their stomach and coat it. You want to use full body barrier protection, including head and face protection. A nasal air supply for the patient. Now this can be, I just use my nitrous unit without the nitrous. I just use oxygen off that. You can have oxygen, some of you may have it piped in your office. And you can use oxygen from that source. But you could use a scuba tank rigged up to a nasal air supply. It doesn't have to be oxygen, it can be room air, compressed air, but they cannot breathe the room air as you're taking this stuff out and creating an aerosol of vapor and particulate. We want you to use a vinyl dam and nitrile gloves and coat the dam with some Mercury X cream that traps particulate and reduces the vapor penetration through the vinyl dam. We do know that the vinyl dam and the nitrile gloves, there's less penetration of vapor than using latex. We're going to put a saliva ejector under the dam to not really pull out saliva, but we like to pull out any vapor that may cross that barrier. We're going to have some eye protection for the patient. We're going to use this cleanup suction device. You'll see it in the pictures in a minute. It has a little chamber that goes over the tooth you're working on. And we know from our original particulate study, the thing works. It's kind of a pain in the rear. Sometimes you have to trim it a little bit to make it work. You use a long shank burr to take out your amalgam. But it does reduce the particulate that spreads around the room. When we took that away, we saw particulate levels go up. We're going to use auxiliary suctions with mercury air filtration. We'll show you those. They're big units. Lots of water in a conventional high-speed handpiece and your conventional suction all at the same time with the cleanup attached to it. We like to get the mercury out in the biggest pieces as possible, try to cut it out in chunks. And then when we take all that off, we're going to give the patient a post-rinse, again with either slurry of charcoal and chlorella or N-acetylcysteine and vitamin C. And you do not want them to swallow that rinse. You want to suction that out. So here's our patient barrier protection. There's several ways to do this. This isn't the only way. This is the way I do it. This is Tyvek material, which I buy in the big rolls, and I buy that from Material Concepts. And I have it hanging up in the office, and we peel it down. It's about 5 feet long, and we cover the patient from neck down with that. Those are Tyvek hoods she has on there. I get those from Uline. And then they got some safety glasses on. So when they're in the chair, that's what you see. Okay? Do some patients kind of freak out a little bit? You get your claustrophobic patient, that's tough on them. Most of them are fine with it. I mean, most of the time we do these, we do the entire mouth at one time. So that may be on them for 20 or 30 minutes sometimes. Most of them get through it. If they can't get through it, I will bring them back, put them on a little triazolam, and then they can usually get through it and sedate them a little bit. There's a saliva ejector under that vinyl dam. If you can kind of see it in that picture or not, but it's there. This is a picture of the cleanup. The cleanup device has its negative things too. The barrel part of that, where the cleanup is on the lettering there, it's not disposable. I mean, you could, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. And as you use them, they get really black inside. So we've tried to come up with a better solution, and we haven't been able to do it yet. The little end tip, the little vinyl part on the end, the flexible part, that you throw away. And you can trim that, like if you got a tooth and the rubber dam clamps in the way, you can trim it a little bit and make it fit down a little tighter. You see the nasal air source, that's just from my nitrous unit, tooth's isolated. Saliva ejectors underneath that rubber dam. And then we found this really helps. This is a HGX cream, and it's full of sulfur, so it grabs the mercury particulate. It helps neutralize the mercury and keep the vapor from coming off. Then we have some engineering controls also that help keep your environment not contaminated, to protect you and your team all day long. So any device that we actually use for that, we'll show you. Now one thing is, in some buildings, your dental suction unit may not be vented to the outside. It could be vented back into your equipment room. And if it is, all you're doing is recirculating mercury particulate and vapor back into your office. So you've got to make sure those things are vented to the outside. We have oral aerosol evacuation unit. Now, some of these exhibitors will be here. The Dentair Vac is a very economical unit, and it works great. And Mike is usually here. The IQ Air has different speeds. It's not quite as loud. It has more whistles and bells. A very effective unit, but it costs a little more. And these are our high volume evacuation units that we place as close to the working field as we can get them. This is Dr. Young's office. We want to use nitrile gloves because you get less exposure through the gloves. You can use this HGX cream on your hands before you glove up, and it will help protect what gets through the gloves. Smells a little funny. Some of the girls don't like it, but I find it very useful. These Mercon products are very helpful in cleaning up particulate that you've created in your operatory after the procedures are over. So what we will do is we get all the amalgam out. Then we take all the protection barriers off, get them out of the operatory, dispose of them as properly as we can. I'll go over that a little bit. Then we take these Mercon wipes and wipe some surfaces down. like the head of the handpiece, or you can switch hand pieces, however you want to do it, but you still need to wipe those things down before you put them into the autoclave. Because if you put a bunch of mercury particulate in that autoclave, you heat it up under pressure and exhaust that vapor when you get done, it's going all over your office. But these are Mercon wipes. They're Ross Healthcare products, and from Canada for you Canadian guys. I think you get them from Ross. I get them here. I think I get those from Granger. They have all kind of different products. Yeah, I get them from Granger here in the States. And that's the cost of them, or at least it was when I made this program up. Here's the cleanup, a little bit of picture of it. You get this from the Academy. We are the U.S. distributor of the cleanup devices. The only place you can get it. I also have some whole room air filtration systems that run all the time. I've actually got two or three in the office now. You can look at E.L. Faust. He's always here. And these filtration systems just help protect and bring your levels down all day long. Now for the dentist and team barriers, oh, I got some masks back there. Is anybody back there on the table? I can't see y'all. Jim, there's some masks right over here, or whoever's on the back row there. Y'all see those masks? Why are you gonna get them? Grab those. You can just pass those. Let's let those go around the room. Just hand them to somebody. Now those two masks that are coming around, they only have one filter on them simply because I couldn't find other filters when I went to get them. But y'all just take those and look at them. Okay, because this is so important, and it's what you don't want to do. Especially our females, because it's going to mess your hair up. And they're hot. When you're wearing them, all this stuff is hot. I practice in the South. My rooms are freezing just because we have to put this stuff on. So we just give our patients a blanket and cover that blanket up and wash them for every patient. So you have choices in these kind of masks. That's the 3M full face mask. And for that one, you can use loops. That's a full face mask. That's a 3M full face mask. You can get corrective lenses on those, but you can't wear loops with it. The Comfo-Plastic mask just covers your nose and your chin, and you can wear your loops. You also have to have some head protection. Or you can do like Jack does, Jack Call. He has a positive pressure mask that he uses. So he's got that tied into an air source, which I think he's got oxygen running on it. But like I said, it could be a compressed air tank. And he's got that going to him. He's got the assistant has one on, the patient has one on. There's his positive pressure mask. Here's Dr. Warwick, our AV guy back there. He really is a dentist. And he's using underneath the mask he's wearing, he has a mercury vapor mask, another one. And he's got a head shield. We have those at the booth. I didn't bring one of those in here. And he's got a hairnet on. He's got a surgical gown on. You can see his patient's covered up. Can't see the patient. Where's the patient? And he's got everything he's supposed to have there. High volume evacuation is there. This is working in my office. I like the Uline suits because they have booties built in, so my shoes and everything are covered up. We had when we did the original particulate study, we kind of came in and scoped Jerome's office and tested for vapor. And I used to have this big teaching room, about as long as this front table here. And I had a chair on one end and a big island where the doctor used to come in and do stuff. And on the other side of that island, there was a really pretty oriental rug, about 10 by something, 13. And my daughter wanted the rug because we were moving out of that office in like the next 2 weeks. We were getting out of there. I wouldn't have done this study if I was staying there. So we were checking everything for because we wanted mercury levels down. I said, guys, let's check that carpet. Let's see what's in there. Well, we got hits on that carpet. So we rolled that carpet up, a couple $1,000 carpet, and threw it in the dumpster. I told my daughter she couldn't have it because I didn't want my grandkids crawling around that carpet. And so as we were doing the study, throughout the day, at the end of this study, we did 8 amalgams, no water, dry. And we were all suited up, and the numbers that were going up on all our monitoring devices were scary. I wanted to stop at 4. And Matt said, "Oh, we got to do it. We got to finish the study." I mean, there were chunks flying everywhere. It was terrible. So that room was kind of closed off. It had doors on it. We got done. We were through for the day. We walk over in the other room and take our mask off to the hygiene side of my practice, which literally was closed off from this room on the other end of the building. It's like they only had 4 operators at the time. And there was a drum laying in there, and I go, "Man, we better check, see what's going on in here." It was high as it could be. I mean, it was still scary high. It was like over 100 in that room that the air conditioning system had carried over there. So I said, "Let's get out of here." We opened the windows up in the office, turned all our suction devices on, left them open all night long. Somebody could come in and steal everything they want, wouldn't have mattered, and probably would have killed them anyway. And so then we came back in the next morning, everything was down to 0. You know, all those suction units were working, everything had cleared out. But that will wake you up, guys. If that story didn't wake you up, you need this protection, okay? Even though it looks scary and it's not comfortable. Here's Dr. Young doing the same thing. What about the instruments that get contaminated during the procedure? Well, mainly just keep your mirror out. If you need an Explorer, fine. Rubber dam clamps, all that stuff. We just take it out of the room as soon as we're finished. We wipe them down, get them into sterilization, spray them with Mercon down in before they go into the the little vibrating thing, whatever that thing's called, and try to clean them up before we contaminate the rest of the office with them. Then we take fresh instruments and finish our restorative work. After we take everything off the patient, we let the patients rinse again with N-acetylcysteine and vitamin C in my office, or the chlorella charcoal rinses slurries that you can use also. Don't let them swallow that one. So, see what it looks like in video.
I'm Dr. Griffin Cole of the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. Patients and dentists should make sure that each step of the safe mercury amalgam removal technique, or SMART, will be applied during a dental appointment for filling removal. The first step is for patients to consult with their dentist before the mercury filling removal begins, so that both the patient and dentist agree that all safety measures will be in place. This helps to ensure that the patient and dentist know exactly what to expect. It's also helpful to watch the following example of the safe mercury amalgam removal technique, or SMART, being applied. Each room where mercury fillings are removed should have adequate filtration in place, which requires a high-volume air filtration system such as IQ Air Dental Mercury FlexVac or similar device, capable of removing mercury vapor and amalgam particles generated during the removal of one or more mercury fillings. If possible, windows should be open to reduce the mercury concentration in the air. The patient should be given a slurry of charcoal, chlorella, or similar absorbent to rinse and swallow before the procedure, unless the patient declines or there are other contraindications making this clinically inappropriate. Protective gowns and covers for the dentist, dental personnel, and the patient should be in place. All present in the room should be protected because substantial quantities of particles generated during the procedure will elude collection by suction devices. It has been demonstrated that these particles can be spread from the patient's mouth to the patient's knee and to the chest, shoulder, and neck of the dentist and dental assistant. Either a properly sealed respiratory grade mask rated to capture mercury or a positive pressure properly sealed mask providing air or oxygen should be worn by the dentist and all dental personnel in the room. Non-latex nitrile gloves should be utilized by the dentist and all dental personnel in the room. Face shields and hair head coverings are to be utilized by the dentist and all dental personnel in the room. In order to protect the patient's skin and clothing, a full-body impermeable barrier should be utilized. External air or oxygen delivered via a nasal mask for the patient also should be utilized to assure the patient does not inhale any mercury vapor or amalgam particulate during the procedure. A nasal cannula is an acceptable alternative for this purpose as long as the patient's nose is completely covered with an impermeable barrier. A saliva ejector should be placed under the dental dam to reduce mercury exposure to the patient. A dental dam that is made with non-latex nitrile material should be placed and properly sealed in the patient's mouth, as well as a full head, face, and neck barrier that is under and around the dam. During amalgam filling removal, the dentist should utilize an IQ-Air Dental Mercury Flex Vac or similar device in close proximity to the operating field, that is 2 to 4 inches from the patient's mouth, to mitigate mercury exposure. High-speed evacuation produces better capture when fitted with a cleanup device, which is preferred. Copious amounts of water to reduce heat and a conventional high-speed evacuation device to capture mercury discharges should be used to reduce ambient mercury levels. The amalgam should be sectioned into chunks and removed in as large of pieces as possible using a small diameter carbide drill. Once the removal process is complete, the patient's mouth should be thoroughly flushed with water and then rinsed out with a slurry of charcoal, chlorella, or similar absorbent. During the opening and maintenance of suction traps in operatories or on the main suction unit, dental staff should utilize the appropriate personal protection equipment described earlier. An amalgam separator should be properly installed, utilized, and maintained to collect mercury amalgam waste so that it is not released into the effluent from the dental office. Dentists must comply with federal, state, and local regulations addressing the proper handling, cleaning, and/or disposal of mercury-contaminated components, clothing, equipment, surfaces of the room, and flooring in the dental office. I hope that you'll make the smart choice about your dental care by asking for safety measures during your mercury filling removal. For more information about the Safe Mercury Amalgam Removal Technique, or SMART, including scientific research about why these safety measures are important, visit thesmartchoice.com from the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology.
As dentists, we create a lot of mercury waste. And as stewards of our environment, we should protect our environment. In South Carolina, we have mercury warnings in every lake and stream, freshwater. And most of that contamination is coming from dental offices. The EPA has finally mandated that we have separators, but then they keep putting it off, like it was 2020 everybody had to have them. And now it's what, another year they're giving everybody? It's ridiculous. The things are not expensive. They're cost of £1 crown, guys. Buy one and put it in your office if you don't have it.
Mercury is one of the most toxic elements and a persistent traveler through our environment. So who's the travel agent for this elemental poison? Coal-fired power plants? Most definitely. Mining operations? Of course. Your neighborhood dental office? Surprisingly, yes. The United Nations Environment Program reports that 10% of global mercury usage is for amalgam tooth fillings. This results in up to 340 tons of dental mercury journeying into the environment each year. In the United States, dentists are currently the largest users of elemental mercury. This accounts for roughly 32 tons of mercury used yearly to place amalgam restorations, otherwise known as silver fillings. Although the number of amalgams placed has decreased over the last few decades, dentists still use amalgam without precautions, so the threat of mercury exposure continues. Dental mercury travels many pathways on its journey back into the environment. It starts when a dentist receives pre-capsulated dental amalgam. In each capsule, up to 900 milligrams of elemental mercury is separated from the other alloys. To make the final product, the capsule is vigorously shaken in a triturator to thoroughly mix all the elements. Occupational safety concerns arise because this heats the mercury, creating thousands of micrograms of mercury vapor, which are released upon opening the capsule. The used amalgam capsule still contains a small amount of mercury, so the ADA recommends the capsules be stored in an airtight container and collected by a hazardous waste company. Unfortunately, the majority of dentists toss the capsules into the trash. This mercury-contaminated trash will eventually travel to a landfill, where the mercury will continue its trek down into the soil. Back at the dental office, the freshly mixed amalgam is placed into the tooth. The dentist then carves away any excess material. While patients swallow some amalgam waste, most is suctioned out and flows through a filtration system. But this system only captures a small percent of the larger pieces. The vast majority of much smaller pieces escape into the wastewater. A similar scenario plays out when dentists replace amalgam fillings. Many dentists clean out their filtration systems by dumping the captured mercury-tainted sludge down the drain. A study funded by the ADA estimated that amalgam fillings contribute up to 50% of the mercury found in wastewater. This contaminated water then flows to publicly owned water treatment plants. While efforts are made to remove the mercury from wastewater, most of it settles down into the sewage sludge, which is then taken and spread on land as fertilizer, or deposited in a landfill. In both scenarios, the mercury constantly off-gasses into the atmosphere and seeps into the ground. A percentage of the sewage sludge is also sent packing to incinerators. With over 200 tons of dental mercury in the mouths of Americans, even exhaling is a contributor of mercury to our atmosphere. Additionally, people with amalgam fillings serve as hosts for mercury's passage back into our environment through the excretion of human waste. Mercury's ride continues even after death. Crematories, which are unregulated and contain no filtering processes, are a growing vehicle for transporting mercury back into the atmosphere. When all the various pathways are accounted for, dental mercury from the United States contributes roughly 28.5 tons into the environment each year. The governments of the world are actively working together to reduce the amount of mercury released globally to protect human health. The first and foremost step to eliminating mercury released from dental amalgam is to discontinue the use of this toxic material. With the threat so great and the solutions so simple, it's time to restrict mercury's passport.
You know, our organization has been working almost 30 years to try to get dentists to quit using mercury in fillings. I hope we don't have to go another 30 before it's gone, because it is decreasing, which is a good thing. But in your careers, you're still going to be taking it out. So what do we do with the waste we create in our office, like the mercury on the rubber dam, all those particles, the mercury on our gloves? So what I do, and this is really not part of the SMART protocol, I don't think, but we recycle the big, heavy, gross stuff that we can see all that particular on. I use a company called Stericycle. It's about a 5-gallon bucket. We actually I put it into a little bucket that's got a top on it in the operatory, and then we empty that bucket at the end of the day, because every time you open this bucket, you know, it's full of mercury down in there. So you should be wearing protection, and preferably do it with a high volume suction going when you open up that bucket. The gowns, we really hadn't found a good solution for, I'll be honest, because you know, those buckets cost $500, I think, maybe $800, and I'll probably fill that up every 4 to 5 months. And if you put the gowns in there, I'd fill it up every 2 days. So The gowns, the heavy gowns, we do place in the trash. And our state doesn't care. So separators, we've always had a separator. You can, there'll be some people here talking about separators. There's all kind of different kinds of separators. I like this one. This one has a scientific review that's in our literature, the IAOMT's literature. It gets out 99.5% of the mercury. I probably change mine about once a year. It's got some quick disconnect features, so you can change them pretty quick and pretty safely. They also make a cleanser, Power Lines cleanser, that does not have chlorine. If you use a chlorine type cleanser, it actually releases more mercury in that line than cleans it out. So this Power Lines cleanser is the best one to be using. So why are we not supposed to eat humans anymore? Because they contain toxic levels of mercury, thanks to all the fillings in their teeth. Now, we'll have it open for questions, but I also want to talk a little bit about what it means to be a member of the IAOMT. I want you to take these really simple. I've really done this presentation down for today. I've taken a lot of science out because Bill was supposed to do a good job convincing y'all mercury was actually a poison. I want you to take these safe protocols you learned today and fully get them implemented into your everyday routine. But every procedure that has amalgam. And how many metal-based crowns do you take off and have amalgam under there? You might as well just assume that when you're taking off some kind of metal-based crown, porcelain, whatever, it's going to have mercury under it. So for those patients, you need to have protocol. And for yourself, go ahead and just suit up and just assume it's going to be there. And I don't want you to leave parts out. How many people use a rubber dam? Be honest, it's okay. You're going to have to get into that again. Okay? I know everybody uses them in dental school, right? I mean, that was the only assistant I had in dental school was a rubber dam. But we use rubber dams for every procedure. If I have to anesthetize the tissue and clamp tissue, I will get a rubber dam on that patient if I have to take, say, mercury out of a root extraction. That I've got to separate roots and there's a hunk of mercury there and there's nothing to clamp to. I will use a rubber dam. We'd love you to become a fluoride-free practice, include eliminating fluoride-containing composites. That seems like that would be a financial hit. It's really not. You'll have patients coming to you just because you don't use fluoride. You'll also make up the difference because you're going to charge extra for these protection features. We charge $190, I think, every time we have to pull out all our protection features. And it costs us $30 probably, and a little extra time. Dr. Young charges $350, I think, in his office. So you can put it wherever you want it. People will want it, and they will pay for it. You are going to have some outside investment as far as equipment. Now, I'm the treasurer of the IAOMT for a little while longer, and I'm trying to get us out of being out of the supply business because we really lose money selling you. Well, we always have to do cleanups because we're the only distributor for it. We have the license. But the mask and the other things that we sell, we don't make a dime. We actually probably lose money. But it's easy. We'll make a package for you. We've got a guy who's trying to start up a business where he will supply this stuff to you in a package. And he'll be at our booth. Go by our booth. Decide whether you want to buy it from all of the Rangers and the Uline people and wherever the Mercon wipes and all that stuff on your own. Or if you'd like to make it nice and simple and just have a package, he'll have a package for you. And you can buy it from him. So we're trying to make it as easy as we can. And that's for like the disposable stuff and the gowns and the masks and those kind of things. The separators, we got the boss people will be here. I highly recommend them. That's personal. That's not the IAOMT talking. That's me talking. The the high volume evacuations, I use the Dentair vacs. I think we have 3 or 4 of them in the office, and he's usually here. And those are the kind of things you have to purchase to get this going. All in all, you're probably spending the startup cost around $5,000. So not too bad. So what's social media say? What are your patients going to think when you start doing this? How are you going to transition from being whatever you were, not protecting, to all of a sudden protecting? Well, for me, it was kind of easy. Because I told my patients I had a problem. I've got to start protecting myself. And it makes a lot of sense to me to protect you. Do you think I ought to protect you? They go, oh, by all means. And that was all it took. The more you do this, you won't even have to have that conversation anymore. Because patients will be coming to you because you do this. They will already know about it. They'll be very knowledgeable. And they would expect you to do it. And if you don't do it, they'll either go somewhere else, they'll call our office and complain about you, which they do, and we'll make a nice courtesy call to you, because we're not police force, and say, hey, do you know you had a patient complaining because you didn't use so-and-so? You really got to use this stuff once you commit to doing it, okay? So I think that bottom one there is a comment from one of my patients. The top 2 are from Tammy Graggio's patient, who's not here today. She's one of our past presidents. But you won't get bad comments from patients. You will only get appreciation. They will only say thank you. And if you have that rare occasion that goes, no, I'm not doing that protection, then I go, well, I'm not doing your dentistry. I'm sorry. I cannot ethically do that. But that's only happened to me maybe twice in the 15 years I've been doing this, something like that, since 1997, when I started protecting all my patients. So that's where we are. I hope that was pretty clear, and I hope I've left us plenty of time for questions. I think that's a slide of Italy, where I'm going in May to take my wife after 40 years of marriage. So we're kind of happy about that. To the same person. All right. How about questions? Yes. Got a mic?
Do you take, like after you remove the amalgam, you take everything off, or do you restore the teeth?
Take it. After you remove all the mercury you're going to remove, and I might be doing 4 quadrants. So after I get done with everything, we take all those barriers off. We wipe down our surfaces with the Mercon wipes. We rinse the patient, give them one of those rinses. Don't let them swallow it. Suck it back out. And the air assistants do, because the dentist is probably going to get out of the room by then. I'm the one that takes all that stuff out to the trash, or puts it in the containers, proper containers where it goes. So I do that, and then while I'm doing that, after I do that, I might go check some hygiene patients or whatever. What I'm really doing is stalling, because I don't want to go back in that room yet. And all the vacuums, all that stuff needs to be running. But what the assistants tend to do is y'all want to rip that mask off. Don't. It takes probably 3 to 5 minutes for the levels to come back down in that room, as we saw when we did our particular study. So don't be in a big hurry. Let it take a little time to clear out. If you got your windows open, it's going to take less time.
Do you have something to actually measure the mercury in your ops, or?
I do not. We do have a Jerome mercury vapor that the Academy has, which you could rent. If you wanted to like test it out or see check your own operatory, you can keep it for a couple of weeks and then send it back to us. Matty Young has a unbelievable system in his office where he does monitor all the time. So a lot of our data can come from his system. But to put one of those in is probably about $80,000. So.
But you can buy the Jerome for like $5,000.
Yeah, and you can rent one for the Academy if it hadn't disappeared.
Or you can get a used one for about $2,500. You didn't mention it, but see the face on this guy, how it's fuzzy? He has to use the full face mask because the masks don't work with fuzzy faces.
Yeah.
Don't listen to him. You saw who's on the smart video, right?
He's one of those guys who can't mess his hair up.
Face mask. Face mask works good. The mask that Dave Warwick and I, we use the same system as far as the comfortable mask. It's got a little carbon filter with the face mask and everything else that you saw. Joe chooses to wear the big Tyvek suit, so.
Yeah, because
Have a
Joe's had
choice.
2 heart attacks and didn't want him to work here.
There you go.
Actually, I'll be honest with you, this year I started working 3 days a week. I have 2 associates. My associates take all the mercury out. I very rarely expose myself anymore to mercury.
I imagine that you're out of network with most insurances, but if you are in network with some,
No.
what do you're not
No.
okay? What would
I
you say to
haven't.
patients if you are in network and they may be pushing back a little bit? First, I imagine get out of network is probably the best thing to do, but
True, and I know it's hard to say. I would tell you I don't even take assignment for insurance, and really haven't for the last 25 years probably. I mean, I did when I first started practice, but so you will find as the patients who want this, they're not going to care. Your existing patients who are in that network and have trained to be in that network, I mean, you're slowly gonna. They may leave. Okay, network's not going to pay for the extra, and you're not getting paid enough anyway. So, you need to. You can't just quit them unless I don't know what your practice is. I can be glad to talk to you about it, but you gotta slowly get out of them. But for patients, when I first started doing this, I went to Bill Strupp's course down in Florida in '97, and this was when you had slides, and literally there would be stacks of slides almost to the ceiling as long as that wall, all of them showing amalgam coming out, and all he kept calling it the black crud, the cracks in the teeth, and he just hated mercury amalgams. And so it wasn't about the amalgam, really, about the mercury. It was about just how crappy the amalgam is as restorative, because it tears up teeth. So I came back to my office, and I told my girls, and I said, all right, pack all that amalgam up. Let's get it out of the office. Anything to do with amalgam, get it out of here. I'm never placing another amalgam. And one of my little country girls who went to church, a good Christian girl, she went, well, it's about damn time. So I started changing my practice. And I had a few patients that go, well, I want amalgam because my insurance pay for that. I said, fine, you can do that, but you're not going to do it here. You'll have to go somewhere else. So I just drew a line in the sand and started doing it. Then all the stuff happened to me. Got more knowledge. My patients actually were coming in knowing more than me when I started doing some minor protection. And they were talking about a lot of biological things, a lot of alternative medicines that I was just nodding my head and go, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. So my next progression, and Bill and I did this together, is we took our naturopathic course with Phil, who's going to be talking to y'all this afternoon. He has a biological dental school, and we took that a 15, 16-month thing, and that just changed the way I look at everything. So I had a tooth number 9 on myself, had a root canal. I got hit by a car when I was a kid and finally died when I was about 30, and I had a root canal. And then cone beam, we did that, 18 years ago, I think. So cone beams actually came out back then. Phil had probably one of the first ones, and he took a cone beam x-ray on my root canal, which had this huge abscess in the length of that tooth. My left ankle had been hurting for 2 years. The root canal had been there longer, but I guess it just gotten worse. But my left ankle was hurting for 2 years, back of it, like an Achilles. And I play golf, and I walk, and I would be limping for the last 3 holes. I couldn't walk that far. And I have a high pain tolerance. I ignore pain. This I couldn't ignore. And so I told Phil, all right, we got to get this tooth out next time I'm back up here, and I'll get everything ready. And so we went up there and got there a little early. He took the tooth out. And while he was taking the tooth out, of course, I couldn't feel a thing. I said, Phil, did you just get that tooth out? He said, yeah, why? I said, my ankle just quit hurting. It ain't hurt since. So I said, okay, God, this stuff must be real, because it was real on me. Teeth are connected to the body. Infections Mercury doesn't just come off the top of the tooth, it goes through the tooth, through the pulp into the bloodstream. And they're all connected to the body. We're not separate physicians. We're physicians of the mouth, but what we do affects the whole body. So that made me a real believer. So as far as transitioning my practice, that was a big step in it. I got a lot more serious about doing it.
All right, Jeff, thanks.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about chelation and what that entails and how you do it.
All right, as dentist, you should not be prescribing or diagnosing mercury toxicity. Because now you're a physician and your MD and the state boards will look at you and they might come after you. And that's one way, Bill's had some problems with boards. I've never had a problem with the boards, but I don't do any of that stuff. I work with integrative health physicians, functional medicine doctors that do the chelation. Now what chelation is taking a drug, usually has a sulfur compound on it, that helps pull mercury supposedly out of the body and out of the cells, but it also pulls essential minerals out of the body. So really the IV part is to put those minerals back in. It also makes mercury come out through the kidneys, where that's not where it's really supposed to come out. So if you pull it out too fast, you can get kidney damage. It's another reason you shouldn't be doing it. Now, I do use a product from Quicksilver Scientific, which I give my patients the option of doing as a supplement. And it binds mercury in the gut and helps take it out of the gut, opening up their own natural pathways, so it does help them start to detox. But I don't call it that. It's just supplemental protection. If anything that gets them by the dam that they might swallow, it will grab it in the gut and carry it out through the feces where it's supposed to go. That's called Mercury Protect, I think, from Quicksilver's their new name. They may have a booth here today. Yes, sir. It took 2 years when I was at that 45 level to get my levels under 3. A lot of money. Now, Dr. Haley's product, when you'll hear him lecture, you'll understand it. You're not gonna have to do chelation. You're just gonna have to take Dr. Haley's drug.
In regards to protection and stuff from amalgams, from a hygiene standpoint, we use ultrasonics, that kind of thing. Are there any cautions or?
Well, I tell my hygienists, if they're polishing, don't polish the amalgam and put a mask on. I let them wear a mask. Unless you're going to put that ultrasonic on the mercury, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think it's okay. I would try to stay away from it. When you're doing that, I'd put a mask on. I don't know if you're really creating that particulate. I don't think you are, but we don't have a study on that. Okay? But I would definitely have a mask on of some type. Whether it's the cloth one with the mercury things in it, maybe a face shield, or that come from classical maybe. Okay?
Okay, kind of back to the chelation thing. Do you recommend that all of your patients go see the functional medicine doctor to be evaluated, and then do you recommend them to do chelation before or after your mercury removal?
Good question. That's per patient. If they come in and a lot of my patients are going to say, I've got brain fog, they'll call it. I'm tired all the time. I just have no energy. Someone would talk about aches and pains, kind of like I had. Someone would talk about depression. I haven't really had anybody go as far as say they're suicidal. But if they come in with those symptoms, I say, yeah, I can make a referral for you. A lot of them are coming across the other way, already coming from that doctor, and they're already on chelation. Which is fine, that's good, but it's kind of a waste of money if they're going through chelation and they hadn't gotten the mercury out. It's just going right back in. So whether it's done first, I really feel that we're protecting our patients very well. I think they are not getting exposed when we're taking their mercury out. So it depends on a lot of times how much money they have. you know, where they want to put their funds first, because chelation costs a lot of money too. And when they're doing their whole mouth, they got a whole mouth of mercury. You know, it might be a $5,000 case, it could be a $15,000 case. So sometimes it's just financially hard for them to get everything done. And you'll have patients also that come in, right, Bill, they're kind of self-chelating and doing stuff. And I don't tell them they're doing wrong. You know, I support the patient's decisions, but I do suggest to them it might be better if you knew where your levels were. You might be wasting a bunch of money there. You might not even really need all that. So the patients will be very knowledgeable, you know, and you'll just have to learn more about what they're doing. You just kind of agree with them.
So this is a logistics question. When you first started to use the SMART technique, how did you handle hygiene checks? Because you're all geared up with this equipment.
Well, I'm fast.
Okay.
I mean, I can take out a mouthful of amalgam in 20 minutes. So they just had to wait on me. Yeah, I don't walk in there in that suit, that's for sure, unless it's a contaminated suit. Now, if I haven't started yet and I happen to put it on, they holler at me, I might run in there in the suit. But I'm definitely not going in there if the suit's contaminated.
Keep in mind, too, that once you start to market yourself as this kind of a dentist, you need to be educated, because you're going to get people from all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Traveling from all over the country, come to see you, and you better know what you're talking about. So before you get to, I'm a biologic dentist, educate yourself. This is what this is all about, but there's so much more, too.
This is sort of a two-pronged question, but in terms of documentations, it seems like there's a lot of things that you're taking into account. I know what my composite note looks like. It seems like there's a lot more stuff that needs to be added to the note after looking at all the stuff that you looked at. And then the second part, if you do have a patient that comes in that has these issues with potential mercury toxicity, are you writing down levels, and have you ever run into an instance where a patient said what you did didn't do what it was supposed to do?
I'm probably the world's worst on documenting stuff. I mean, I write down consult for mercury removal or amalgam removal. I try to leave the word mercury out of my charts. Try to just say amalgam. Now, we have form consents forms on our website, which you can copy. You know, they're requesting to have this done. I make it real clear when we do our treatment plans, which treatments are elective, because, I mean, that's a good serviceable, no such thing, but everybody, all other dentists say that's a good serviceable amalgam. I will call that elective. Broken ones, decay, that kind of thing, they're going to mandatory. They have a little mandatory by it, and I make sure it's clear that the patient requested to have us out, elected to have us out. Did I cover everything?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I'm not waiting over here.
It is good to have informed consent, and we do have some copies on our. Huh? Yeah, written.
Sorry, so typically, if you're going to have a patient that's going to do this, how many of these procedures are you doing in a day, and how long of a block are you at? I know you said 20 minutes.
It depends on the patient. If the patient's sick, their patient got cancer, or they are really adrenally challenged, fatigued, really tired, and anything affects them, I go slow, quadrant at a time. If I've got a patient coming in, they're generally pretty healthy. They just worried about the amalgam in their mouth. They want to continue to be healthy. I'll do all of them.
How long? I mean, just a block.
I can do.
Right? You'll get super fast at the dam. I mean, it takes me 30 seconds to put a dam on.
You know, if it's a 4-hour procedure, great. I mean, we have CEREC in the office. We do that. And some of them might be composites. It just depends on the procedure. But let's say it's in my office, if it's a quadrant, there might be 2 composites and a CEREC in a quadrant. We can do that in an hour and a half. If it's a full mouth and it's got like 4 or 5 CERECs, I don't need more patients that day. They can have the whole day if they want them. And like I said, my associates are doing them now. I hardly do those cases anymore.
I want to address the gentleman, and I couldn't see you in the center of the room that was asking, I think back end of the question was you didn't do what you said it was going to do. Did I hear that correctly? One thing, we don't ever guarantee anything that's going to improve you. I mean, we're not saying you're going to feel better, you're going to get rid of headaches, your MS is going to go. We'll never, ever, ever, ever would suggest that. From my angle, we're removing these mercury fillings because you're asking me to. And secondarily, these teeth have cracks in them and broken, as Joe alluded to. So, we don't ever make any medical promises. You can't. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's causing their problems. So that's never part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, no, you're removing them from the teeth. You're removing mercury from the teeth. You're removing a source of exposure to them. But you're not removing mercury from the cells or reversing the damage that mercury may have caused. And I make that real clear to them. Now, Bill said earlier in his presentation, those people that spontaneously things go away, they all feel better just from getting it out of their teeth. That's all an energy response. That's part of that galvanism that was going on. You got that going away. Now the meridians of the body opened up, energy flows better. That's why that happens. So you'll see that occasionally.
Check.
But don't ever promise they're going to get well just because you get the mercury out. If you let them do the most talking, you'll be okay. So another question going there.
Hang on.
You want to just come up here? Bill?
You have guidelines as to what we can put on website or advertising?
Check one.
No
guidelines. Don't do that.
No, really. We don't. We've got some good people here that will help you with your website. Aren't you using Equa? Yeah. We use a company called Equa, EKWA. They're familiar with biological type websites. If they're here, talk to them.
Well, the nice thing about Equa too, Joe, is that they're very familiar with biological dentistry. We've been, maybe 5 years using them?
I think.
And originally, I had to rewrite about everything they sent me because they do monthly, weekly updates, which keeps you, high on the listing of Google and those things. But it's gotten to me now where I can get a monthly change or wherever they're going to do the website. I might just change one word, but they're really knowledgeable about what we're doing. They've worked hard at that.
Make no health claims. You probably say you use protection. I wouldn't even use the word safe. You put that you use protection for the patient, provide protection for your patients. Get SMART certified, you can use that, I think, no problem. But I'd get them to help you.
And another thing, there was a question earlier in previous meetings about Mercury-Free. It was brought up that when they were inspected that they had mercury fluorescent light bulbs in their office, so they weren't mercury-free.
Yeah.
So, be careful with those words.
Nobody's mercury-free if you're taking out mercury.
No.
And it varies from state to state. So, like in North Carolina, it's real tough to say anything.
Don't go to North Carolina and practice.
Yeah.
I'm coming.
Couple of questions. You mentioned that this is a stepping stone for us to learn. What's next? Tell us what's next.
Great question.
What was that?
She's asking, because I said, this is one of the things that they're learning is this whole fundamentals, and there's more to learn. So she asked, what's next? So a couple things. One is learn the SMART process for sure and get SMART certified so that you can at least say, I know the process, I bought all the equipment, so I can at least do that, right? So you can make that claim, I'm going to safely remove your fillings. You're going to learn more from Dave Kennedy on fluoride today. You're going to learn about biologics in the afternoon. You're going to learn a ton more about that. So you're going to feel a little more comfortable. But then I would suggest either the NMD program or there's other things to go further with this. So NMD, so it's, okay. So we've all three have done that. A lot of people in this room in the academy have done it. It's a 18-month program. It's 6 weekends over 18 months. And you learn a little bit about a lot of things. And so, but all I meant by that was that, I'm a mentor. There's a lot of us that are mentors. And I remember I had a young, brand new dentist who called me and said, hey, I'm so excited about this. I've already changed my answering service and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, what? And the answering service was like, you've reached the Mercury-Free office of whatever. And I'm like, what are you doing? Don't, listen, we're all dentists, right? Or at least most in the room are. You're doing dentistry, okay? So don't make a big deal about it, Okay, you're taking out old fillings, like he said, that are broken or, need to be replaced. That's dentistry. You just are choosing to be better at protection. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all, who's not going to want that? It's when you get into the whole conversations about, am I getting sick from this? That's where you got to be careful.
Take advantage of our mentor program too.
Yeah.
You can all, if you're a new member, we'll all be assigned a mentor. And what happens a lot of times is, even when I will call that person, welcome them, I'll never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Give them my phone numbers, give them my cell number. They don't call me.
The second question, right?
The ones that call me do pretty good.
So speaking of mentors, who's the best person that you guys know that's working directly with a functional medicine person that's going to help me with my protocols?
Well, I'll be glad to.
Houston? We're in Texas, so we got all
I'll be glad
those.
to.
We have everything.
Are you in Texas?
Yeah, she's Houston.
Who's that guy right there?
Yeah, I mean,
Stuart Nunley?
I'm in Austin. We got Stuart Marble Falls, Matt Carpenter, Austin. We
can
plenty
get
of
somebody
people.
close to you.
Plenty. And Texas, we're blessed, at least in Austin for sure. We're loaded with functional medicine doctors and naturopaths.
And you'll see tomorrow when the meeting starts with our tags. If you're a mentor, there'll be a tag that says mentor, and just go up to any person, and if they're in the group, they'll be happy to help.
Go up to any person in this academy. This is the friendliest group of dentists. They are sharing. They've helped me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't this academy. I wouldn't still be practicing.
Questions? We still got time. This is good. Okay.
Yeah, just a question about maybe during the studies that were done, is there a difference in mercury exposure between a patient who's had amalgam fillings for 5 years versus someone who's had them for 40 years?
Yeah, but it's a smart ass answer.
I like smart ass answers.
Years. But I don't know how much exposure they have, but it doesn't deplete. I don't know how it doesn't do that, but it doesn't deplete. Mercury's a liquid at room temperature. It gets amalgamated in there. It's off gases all the time. It's still off gases.
Smoking tooth video.
It doesn't disappear. Yeah, which didn't play. Did we play that?
Oh, that's not in your presentation anymore?
Well, it's supposed to be. I don't know if it didn't play or what.
Well, it's all over YouTube.
Anyway,
The smoking tooth video.
I think it didn't play. Well, I got it on my computer too. It's supposed to be in there, but I think it just didn't play. I think I had 2 back to back and it didn't play. I'm just trying to find it.
I have a question about the actual procedure. When you're doing full mouth or a quadrant or whatever you're doing, do you remove the amalgam and then take all the barriers off, kind of reset the room, and then do your restorative? Why not just change rooms? You can do that too. And are you doing that because of comfort? It's more comfortable to restore without the mask and all that? Off, right?
Yeah. You'll get really efficient at this. Really good at it. Hopefully.
I'm often asked by patients about amalgam underneath crowns, endo-treated or non-endo-treated. If it's endo-treated, there's no pulp supply, there's no blood supply, so there's no vapors being absorbed. What's the best way to approach that?
You mean that there's no mercury going through the tooth anymore? That's not true, I don't think. I think there's still retrograde exposure, right, Dave? Isn't there still? Did y'all hear that? Say it right now.
Till did autopsies of people that had amalgam fillings and found more mercury at the apex of the tooth than in the tooth itself. So
Even root canal once. So
Griffin.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to hear it, but
you got it.
That should be of concern to anyone. So all mercury silver fillings leak substantial amounts of mercury constantly. The amount increases with any kind of stimulation. and as a result, mercury from fillings produces the majority of human exposure to mercury. The International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology is extremely concerned about the anecdotal claims of safety by manufacturers and dental trade associations that are at variance with the published peer-reviewed scientific evidence to the contrary. The precautionary principle requires action once the possibility of harm exists. It does not require proof beyond a shadow of a doubt that in the case of heavy metal and xenobiotic exposure is both nearly impossible and unnecessary, in our opinion. What you're seeing is mercury vapor coming off a 25-year-old silver amalgam filling in an extracted tooth. The background is a phosphorescent screen. The mercury vapor absorbs the fluorescent light, and you can see it as a shadow on the screen. This is mercury coming off a filling that was dipped in water that's the same temperature as the human body. This is a filling that was rubbed with a pencil eraser for just a few seconds. Like going to the hygienist and having her clean your teeth. These are not small amounts of mercury. If you can see it, it's more than 1,000 times higher than the Environmental Protection Agency will allow for the air that we breathe. What about the last time you went to the dentist and they drilled on your tooth? Here is the mercury vapor every time you raise the temperature to 110 degrees with hot coffee or warm water, or even chewed on it. Mercury comes off fillings every time you stimulate them, and that stimulation causes the mercury to continue to leak out of the fillings for an hour and a half at a minimum. Some people grind their teeth. Some people chew gum. The dentist might send an old gold crown to the dental lab to be welded. How about the dental personnel? They're not being given informed consent. Back in 1985, the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology set out to determine the amount of mercury that was coming off fillings. And here's the graph, showing substantial quantities of mercury were measured coming off fillings. And then we estimated the total dose. And then we began animal experiments and put radioactive fillings in sheep. Mercury accumulated in the jaw, stomach, liver, and kidney of the sheep in just 30 days. Substantial quantities of mercury spread from the fillings to every organ in that sheep's body. Then we measured that the sheep's kidneys dropped in their ability by 60% to clear inulin, an indication of kidney malfunction. Whole body imaging of monkeys found exactly the same thing. Proponents of amalgam fillings claim that sheep chew too much. Well, what's the problem with monkeys? They had mercury in their jaw, kidneys, liver, intestine, and heart. And further research found dystrophic bacteria that were antibiotic resistant cropped up in the intestines within 2 weeks of receiving these mercury-leaking fillings. Further studies have found damage to the ADP ribosylation of brain neuron proteins. In response to the controversy, and at the request of the Federation of Experimental Scientists and Biologists, Drs. Fritzloh Scheider and Murray Vimy wrote an editorial, the first ever in FASEB, that point by point refuted the claims of the amalgam proponents. That should be of concern to anyone wanting to have healthy children, because mercury is highly damaging to fetuses. Experiments in sheep showed that mercury from the sheep's fillings transferred immediately to the placenta, to the unborn fetus, and to every conceivable portion of the fetus's body. It even increased in the lamb higher after birth from mercury in the mother's milk. There's no such thing as a safe mercury filling. All mercury fillings leak mercury. The combined effect of mercury, cadmium, and lead is just now being investigated, but it's not 1 in 1. It's synergistic, and 1 in 1 may make 100 or even 1,000. Why is that of concern? Over and over again, we've heard that children are exposed to lead from our environment. Mercury and lead is many times more toxic than just mercury alone. These black, corroded, pitted mercury fillings are used where you must drill away 1/3 of the tooth in order to fix a pinhead-sized cavity. Even if you love mercury, It's the wrong thing to do to the children. It leads to broken, diseased, root canal extracted teeth throughout the rest of the life. It's a blunder that costs the child all through their life. Millions and millions of dollars are spent annually fixing teeth again and again. And dentists don't follow the manufacturer's recommendations. They pack mercury in children around gold crowns, underneath bridges. They stuff it around the gum line in contact with tissues. There's mercury spreading from this gold crown to every tissue in that patient's body. Even if you like mercury fillings, putting that kind of filling in the tooth is simply the wrong thing to do. Harold Lowe, the former director of the National Institute of Dental Research, back in 1993, wrote, "The first filling is a critical step in the life of the tooth. Using amalgam for the first filling requires removing a lot of tooth substance, not only diseased tooth substance, but healthy tooth substance as well. So in making the undercuts, you sacrifice a lot, and this results in a weakened tooth. The next thing you know, the tooth breaks off, and you need a crown. Then you need to repair the crown. And so it continues to the stage where there's no more to repair, and you pull the tooth. With the first filling, you should do something that can either restore the tooth or retain more healthy tooth substance. Use new materials, composites, or materials that can bond to the surface without undercuts. You can do this with little removal of the tooth substance so that the core of the tooth is still there. I would add that the cost of all that dental repair over and over again makes the cost of mercury fillings enormous, even if you don't consider the neurological impairment and the brain damage that they surely cause in dental personnel, and the infertility and the heartbreak that they've caused to so many families. It is the opinion of this academy that responsible government agencies should prohibit the use of these fillings until such time as their manufacturers produce the alleged evidence of safety. These instructions can be found on the webpage of the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. I would recommend.
Interesting story.
Hey, that was bonus stuff. You gonna show y'all all that. That's a great summary of what we talked about today. I want to tell you another little story. Very good friend of mine, the dentist. We did some practice management groups together. This group of dentists actually, all went through LVI together and did all that kind of stuff way back when. And I was the first one to get mercury poisoning. I told other guys about it. You know, like most dentists, they said, "Yeah, not me. I'm Superman." Well, there's a very good friend of mine. He's got two of his new assistants here today. All of a sudden, went into acute renal failure out of the blue. He almost died while he was in the hospital. Luckily, they got his kidneys functioning again, and he's okay now. But I finally got through to the dummy. Go get your mercury levels checked. Guess what? They were high. Now, he's kind of in a little predicament because you'd have to really be careful going through chelation for him and go through those kidneys. Not what he should be doing. So hopefully we'll get Boyd's stuff out and we'll get him on that and continue to improve. We about lost him. And I'm sure it was mercury. Now, he's a member of IAOMT. He's sending his employees. He's hopefully doing the stuff. I'll find out today. So I'm week lunch with him. So, man, it's too important not to do this. Especially all these young faces out there, all these females out there that are going to have children. You got to do this. Okay?
If there's any consolation or proof of what we're talking about, so from day one in my practice, I always had a rubber dam, always had an oxygen source, always had the Denner vac. 1993, it came out like the year before that. So I had the Denner. So I did everything that you see on the protocol except I didn't have my plastic mask. I didn't have them fully covered, hair and eyes, but I did all that, right? And 5 or 6 years ago, Chris Shade, who's a chemist in the academy, tested 100 of us, or 100 of us did his tri-test, which tests for inorganic mercury, organic mercury, methyl mercury, to see what the levels were. So we all 100 of us did it. It was hair, urine, and blood. And yours truly had the lowest inorganic mercury. And I think it's because I've always had a pretty darn good protective protocol. I mean, and yet we've added a few things, but a lot of us dentists didn't do that. They came here because they were practicing mainstream, got sick, and now they want to practice like that. So it does, you have to protect yourself. We still got time. We got about 10 minutes for questions. Dave Kennedy.
I'm going to tell you a brief anecdotal story, but that we've got case control studies showing that putting amalgams in causes damage to the proximal tubule in children. So when people say, "Oh, it's been proven safe," no, it's been proven harmful, and that's the Casapia study. That you got all the, "Oh, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe," and then in 2011, Woods pointed out that it damaged the boys that were CPOX4 in all 5 domains. You know how many domains you got? 5 of them. So, and then Geyer showed that in a dose-dependent fashion, that the proximal tubule began to fail and produce a GSST, reduced glutathione, indicating damage to the proximal tubule. We've had people come off kidney dialysis on Boyd-Haley's compound.
I'll translate that in English. There was a thing called the Children's Amalgam Trials where they actually put amalgam fillings in children. One was in an orphanage and one was on the East Coast, I think, of the United States, New England, which is a horrible thing to do anyway. These were not true consent forms. But they compared it to composite fillings and said, look, we tested it and yes, there was definitely an increase in urinary mercury concentration, but after 5 years it was even. It was all even. And they completely left out the whole point that, well, it's stuck in the body, idiot. You have to chelate it out. There's a reason why. Plus, like he mentioned, some people can methylate. Others can't. They never even looked at that. So Woods, who was the main author, had to kind of retract and realize that, wow, to his credit, we really didn't look at all that. So that made the cover of JAMA. It was literally, you know, amalgam fillings are perfectly safe. Here's the proof. And it's just not true. So, other questions? None? Oh, 2.
I do have a question. When you guys do the removal, you guys have the patient doing like an after protocol. What do you guys recommend afterwards? Is it like just a chelation?
I mean, if they need it, they need to be tested. So if they could, I mean, you can do the Quicksilver product, Merc Protect. It does help clean them up. But that's as far as I go. Chlorela's fine. A lot of them will be taking that.
We all do it differently. Honestly, there's no protocol that this academy is going to tell you. Like you mentioned chlorella, that's a mobilizer. That's not a chelator. Neither is cilantro. Those move stuff around, but don't necessarily chelate it out. So just, we all do it differently. Everybody does it differently. I offer IV versus oral supplementation. I tell them IV's better. If you want to do it, here's what's involved. Otherwise, here's some really good products that we have, whether it's Quicksilver or Boyd-Haley stuff that's coming out of whatever. So everybody's different.
Vitamin C IV. Some of them be using clays, charcoal.
There's no set thing.
Otherwise, but we're doing well. I'm doing more vitamin C's with my surgical patients, but I'm doing a lot of IV. But I have a functional medicine doctor that does that for me. They go by her place, grab it, come to the office, go the next day. Mainly because I don't have room.